Hello, I'm Pratiksha Sahane, a student of Elite Institute of Pharma Skills. I'm here to demonstrate my presentation on the topic pharmacovigilance methods. First, we will see introduction to pharmacovigilance. Pharmacovigilance is also called as drug safety. Pharmacovigilance is the combination of two words, that is pharmacon and vigilier. Pharmacon means drug and vigilier means to keep watch. What is the definition of pharmacovigilance? Pharmacovigilance is defined by WHO as the science and activities related to the detection, assessment, understanding, and prevention of adverse drug effects or any other possible drug related problem. Importance of pharmacovigilance. The complete safety data, especially for unexpected and serious adverse events, can be only captured through pharmacovigilance. Pharmacovigilance ensures rigorous testing of clinical drugs to improve the patient care and reduce the risk of negative side effects. Pharmacovigilance is important because in clinical trials, patients are selected and limited in number, may miss the rare adverse drug reactions. It certifies whether a drug works and if it is safe to use. Pharmacovigilance methods. These pharmacovigilance methods are as per ICH GCP guidelines. There are 6 types of pharmacovigilance methods. First is passive surveillance, which is done by spontaneous reports and case series. Second method is stimulated reporting. Third is active surveillance, which is achieved by sentinel sites, drug event monitoring, and registries. Fourth method is comparative observational studies, which is done by cross-sectional study, case control study, and cohort study. Fifth method is targeted clinical investigation. And the sixth method of pharmacovigilance is descriptive studies, which is done by natural history of disease and drug utilization study. We will see the first method of pharmacovigilance, that is passive surveillance. In this type of surveillance, active measures are not taken to look for safety concern or adverse effects. This method is totally dependent on motivation and initiative of potential reporters. This potential reporter could be a patient, a physician, or any healthcare provider like a pharmacist who voluntarily reports the adverse events to a PV center. This reporting can be done by using a form through telephone, email, or fax. This is the more common type of surveillance. Passive surveillance achieved by two different methods. First is spontaneous reports and second is case series. Spontaneous reports. Spontaneous means a process occurring without apparent external cause. A spontaneous report is an unsolicited communication by healthcare professional or consumers to a company, regulatory authority, or other organization. For example, WHO, Regional Centers, Poison Control Center, that describes one or more adverse drug reactions in a patient who was given one or more medicinal products and that does not derive from a study or any organized data collection scheme. The main function of spontaneous reporting system is the early detection of signals of new, rare, and serious adverse drug reactions. A spontaneous reporting system enables physicians and increasingly more often a pharmacist and patients to report suspected adverse drug reactions to a pharmacovigilance center. The task of pharmacovigilance center is to collect and analyze the reports and to inform stakeholders of the potential risk when signals of new ADRs arise. Spontaneous reports play a major role in the identification of safety signals once a drug is marketed. It can also provide important information on at-risk groups, risk factors, and clinical features of known serious adverse drug reactions. Caution should be exercised in evaluating spontaneous reports, especially when comparing the drugs. The data provided by spontaneous reports are often incomplete, and the rate at which the cases are reported is dependent on many factors, including the time since launch, pharmacovigilance related regulatory activity, media attention, and the indication for use of the drug. There is a technique for evaluation of spontaneous reports, that is data mining technique. As the pharmaceutical industries and regulatory bodies receive a large number of spontaneous reports each year, their databases are often large and complex. Consequently, a case-by-case analysis becomes extremely time-consuming and inefficient. This has led to the development of statistical tools known as data mining algorithm to recognize meaningful drug safety signals. There are different methods of data mining. First is proportional reporting ratios, that is PRR, employed by the UK MHRA. MHRA is the Medicine and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency. Second is the Bayesian Confidence Propagation Neural Networks, BCPNN, employed by the WHO Uppsala Monitoring Center. And the third is the multi-item gamma poison shrinker, that is MGPS, used by the US FDA. First method is PRR. The MHRA utilizes the Yellow Card database. Yellow Card scheme is the UK system for collecting and monitoring information on safety concern or incidents involving medicines and medical devices. It is used to calculate PRR, gives the proportion of all reactions to a drug for a particular medical condition of interest compared to the same proportion for all drugs in the database. Second method is Bayesian confidence propagation neural network. The BCPNN implements Bayesian statistics within a neural network architecture. The measure of disproportionality used by WHO Uppsala Monitoring Center is the information component, that is IC, and it gives strength of dependency between a drug and an adverse reaction. The MGPS computes signal scores for pairs and higher order combinations of drugs and events that are significantly more frequent than their pairwise association would predict. These methods, however, share a basic principle that they express the extent to which the number of observed cases differs from the number of expected cases. Now the case series. Case reports are concerned with a single patients who have been exposed to a drug and experienced an adverse reactions. Case series can refer to a collection of patients who have been exposed to the same drug and whose clinical outcomes are then evaluated and described. Alternatively, a case series can be a collection of patients with a single outcome whose history is then checked to a certain previous drug exposure. Case series and case reports are useful in the generation of drug safety signals. However, they are rarely able to determine whether or not the drug was the cause of the adverse outcome, nor can they quantify the incidence of adverse outcomes. Hence, more rigorous studies are normally undertaken to confirm the findings of case reports or case series. For example, it has been reported that some patient with epilepsy had developed irreversible visual field constriction after long-term treatment with vigabatrin. These case reports were useful in producing a drug safety signal. As a result, more rigorous studies were conducted to investigate the link between drug and the adverse event and to determine the incidence of this event. Series of case reports can provide evidence of an association between a drug and an adverse event, but they are generally more useful for generating hypotheses than for verifying an association between the drug exposure and the outcome. Moving to the next, second method of pharmacovigilance, that is stimulated reporting. Stimulate means to encourage. For example, if there is some life-threatening adverse event detected, then in that case, FDA may publish a notification about that particular adverse event. Post that notification, so there will be an increase in number of similar adverse events which will be reported. So this type of reporting is known as stimulated reporting. Why? Because the reporting of that particular adverse event is stimulated by the publication of FDA. Stimulated reporting is a method used to encourage and facilitate reporting by health professionals for new products or for limited time period. Several methods have been used to encourage and facilitate the reporting of adverse events. Such methods includes online reporting of adverse events and systematic stimulation of reporting of adverse events based on pre-designed method. Stimulated adverse event reporting in the early post-marketing phase can lead companies to inform healthcare professionals of new therapies and provide safety information early in use by the general population. The data obtained from stimulated reporting cannot be used to generate accurate incidence rates, but reporting rates can be estimated. Drawbacks of stimulated reporting. The data are often incomplete and not useful to generate accurate incidence rates and outcomes. So the next method is active surveillance. Active surveillance, in contrast to passive surveillance, seeks to ascertain completely the number of adverse events via a continuous pre-organized process. An example of active surveillance is the follow-up of patients treated with a particular drug through a risk management program. Patients who fill a prescription for this drug may be asked to complete a brief survey form and give permission for later contact. In general, it is more feasible to get data on individual adverse event reports through an active surveillance system than through a passive surveillance system. Active surveillance can be achieved by the following methods. First is Sentinel sites. It is a designated healthcare center that collects the data on adverse events. It is used when high quality data is required. It is a depth data collection site. For example, if you want to collect a data about a particular disease, so the Sentinel site for the collection of particular data would be located in region where that disease is common. This is basically the Sentinel surveillance. Second method is drug event monitoring. In this method, patient might be identified from electronic prescription data or automated health insurance claims. Third method is registries. It is a list of patients presenting with the same characteristics. These characteristics can be a disease, that is disease registry, or a specific exposure, that is a drug registry. Both types of registries, which only differ by the type of patient data of interest, can collect the battery of information using standardized questionnaires in a prospective fashion. Now the fourth method, comparative observational studies. Traditional epidemiologic methods are a key component in the evaluation of adverse events. Observational study designs are useful in validating signals from spontaneous reports or case series. Major types of these designs are: first is cross-sectional study, that is survey. Second is case control study, and the third is cohort study. Now we will see the one by one. First is cross-sectional studies. Data collection on population of patients at a single point in time or interval of time, regardless of exposure or disease status, constitute a cross-sectional study. These types of studies primarily used to gather the data for surveys or for ecological analysis. These studies are used to examine the crude association between exposure and the outcome in the ecologic analysis. It is best used to examine the prevalence of disease at one point. Second is case control study. In case control study, cases of disease or events are identified. Controls or patients without the disease or event of interest are then selected in such a way that the prevalence of exposure among the controls represent the prevalence of exposure in the source population. Case control studies are particularly useful when the goal is to investigate whether there is an association between the drug and one specific adverse event, as well as to identify risk factors for adverse events. Third is the cohort study. In the cohort study, a population at risk for the disease or event is followed over a time for the occurrence of the disease or event. Information on exposure status is known throughout the follow-up period for each patient. Cohort study is useful when there is need to know the incident rates of adverse events in addition to the relative risks of adverse events. Next pharmacovigilance method is targeted clinical investigations. When significant risks are identified from pre-approval clinical trials, further clinical studies might be called for to evaluate the mechanism of action of the adverse reactions. These studies can include: first is pharmacodynamic and pharmacokinetic studies. It is used to determine whether a particular dosing instructions can put patients at an increased risk of adverse events. Second is genetic testing. It is used to check which group of patients might be at an increased risk of adverse reactions. Next is specific studies. It is based on pharmacological properties and the expected use of the drug in the general practice. It is used to investigate potential drug-drug interaction and food-drug interaction. The next is additional studies in specific populations, for example, in children or in elderly people, might be useful to determine and to quantify the magnitude of the risk or benefit which might be identified from pre-approval clinical trials but cannot be fully quantified in such populations. The next method is large simplified trial. Might be set up to explain the benefit risk profile of the drug outside the traditional clinical trial setting and or to fully quantify the risk of critical but relatively rare adverse event. So the last method is descriptive studies. Descriptive studies are an important component of pharmacovigilance. These studies are primarily used to obtain the background rate of outcome events and or establish the prevalence of the use of drugs in a specified populations. These studies include: first is natural history of disease and second is drug utilization study. The natural history of disease is used to examine specific aspects of adverse events such as the background incidence rate or risk factors of adverse event of interest can be used to assist in putting spontaneous reports into a perspective. Then drug utilization study describes how a drug is marketed, prescribed, and used in population, and how these factors influence outcomes, including clinical, social, and economical outcomes. Thank you.